My way, or the highway, and in the driveway is a nice range. Cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
What's going on, everyone? Ryan Anderson for the Gallop Out, back with you for some Horseshoe Indiana state-bred stakes action, joined by my co-host for this week, Charlie Freeman. Jackson Muniz, the typical co-host, is still getting situated up at the spa in Saratoga, so he'll join us for probably next week or something like that. But for right now, I got Charlie Freeman, good friend, picker of Golden Tempo in the Kentucky Derby, Mr. Cherie DeVoe, I should call him. Charlie, how you doing, man?
Good. Yeah, I don't know how Kyle will feel about that, considering that's practically his second wife at this point. But yeah, no, doing good. Long time no see. Obviously, if people want to check out the Final Furlong podcast, you and I just did a wonderful episode that'll be out tomorrow, I believe you said, with Emmett, our great friend overseas in Ireland, does great stuff there. But yeah, no, doing well. Nice to get an Indy card in, got some time to kill. And, like you were saying, Jackson's going to be at the spa. I'm going to be at New York as well for Belmont Festival. But until I get settled in there on Thursday, I got some time to bet on Wednesday, so why not cover some interesting stakes races at Horseshoe?
That's absolutely true. We got a couple of really nice state-bred stakes action from Horseshoe Indianapolis. We got one for the fillies and mares, and then one, of course, for the boys. We're going to start as race number 8. This goes Wednesday around 5:55 East Coast time, or 2:55 if you're out here on the best coast. Charlie, we're going to start here, race number 8. We're going 6 furlongs for the fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward. It's the Shelby County handicap, rather. How did you see this race?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of pace in it. It's going to be contested, and normally for me, that is something where I would then, try to find someone from off the pace to put on top. But I really struggled to find any closers that truly intrigued me that I thought could actually get there on top. There were a few I thought were under consideration for maybe third. The horse I ended up landing on was the 7. Work at Wendy. And I understand last time out, wasn't good, was the odds-on favorite and completely faded back. Normally the kind of horse I wouldn't want to touch because I prefer a closer that just misses and stuffs me in a body bag than, a speed horse that ends up being cheap speed and fades. That being said, Work at Wendy only runs here, loves it at Indy, 6 out of 15 on the win end, was in really consistent dominant form, and then had dropped a dud 2 back. And then this was only first off the layoff. Now, obviously, the argument could be, she's 5 now. Is this just who she is? Did she already peak, or can she get back to that form? I'm willing to find out and give her one more try. And especially at 7-2, I couldn't pass on it because it sort of feels like this is the race to either get in on her or be completely off. Because I feel like if she freaks again, then, you're going to probably go back to her being odds on at 7, 8-5, or even, 4-5, or even money if it's a weak field. And obviously, if it doesn't work out, she'll jump up in price again. But I'm willing to find out at 7-2 if she still has it.
Yeah, I like the pick. Obviously, this is the classic, in October of last year, draw a line through that because clearly, wasn't at her peak. And then you can draw a line through the comeback race. So typically, draw a line through the first off the layoff and the race that led to the layoff. If she gets back to those high 70, low 80 speed figures, everyone in here is in some trouble. I went with the other horse that's going to be forward in the Kid Pataki, off of another failed favorite, which is kind of the theme for you and I for this first race here. This horse, obviously tossed the rider or fell down last time out, went up on the front end, but appeared to come out of that race fine. Has had a few works since then, 3 works, 2 of which seem to be very strong on the main track. Have not been able to watch those, but obviously 4 furlongs in 46 and 5 furlongs in 58 seems to be right back to what this horse, was previous to that race. And second up off the layoff, got half a race worth of stamina into her. And I do think she's going to have to maybe get a touch faster, but I do think she's going to be the one out on the front end. She's just going to have to, maybe really get out clean in order to outrun the 7. You and I, both of our horses project to be going at each other early, and we're just going to see who is able to outlast the other. Obviously, Randy Klopp is off to a rocket start to the Indy meeting. So both of us with some horses on the front end. I don't know about you, Charlie. I felt like the rail horse in Imagine the Moon is one of the horses I could trust to come from a little bit off of it and just kind of sit that trip and get. I don't know that I would qualify her as like a closer as much as I would one of the stalking types in here. What were your thoughts on Imagine the Moon or anybody else to kind of round out that exacta for you?
Yeah, so I did have Imagine the Moon in second. I think you're right. I think our 2 and 7 are going to be sparring out in the lead. And I think Imagine the Moon is the one that's pretty interesting. I mean, I don't love the 2-1 morning line price, but I do think that one could end up floating up to make the value make more sense. That being said, I thought First Off the Layoff was probably, out of the horses we've talked about, clearly the best performance out of those in a First Off the Layoff. So it's certainly a good starting point to work with. I also think to start with a 75 already for a horse who, for the most part, never really was running better than mid-70s and a low 80, could potentially take that step up to get back to those figures we were seeing in 2024, which certainly would make her fit in this spot. I think she can save all the ground, sit a nice stalking trip, and be more of, like you were saying, not necessarily the true closers we were potentially trying to look for, but nonetheless save that ground-saving stalking trip that makes her live in here. So, yeah, I have her in second. I think she makes sense. The 2 closers I gave a look to were the 3 and the 5. I'm a little worried that they're too slow, but the 3 raced against these last year, and it was in a hot pace and was able to get up for 4th. I could see a sort of similar trip there. And then the 5 last time out was able to come from off the pace, and I thought was a little impressive in that it wasn't very fast fractions and was still able to go by despite the fact that the leaders had a very easy lead. So I think if you are looking for a bigger price, I think the 3 and 5 are interested in the exactas and tries. But yeah, I'd mainly be using some combo of our 7, 1, and 2 that we've discussed.
I like it. The other horse that I included somewhere in there was the number 6, a horse that I thought on the cutback might have a little bit of early foot, but might still be able to come from a couple lengths off of it. Does have to get faster on the speed figures, but Gennaro Garcia having a good meet. Checking in with the comments real quick. If we have interest and the time, curious about race 2, which we can touch on real quick. Obviously, I look through the full Indy cards because I love betting that place anyway because I'm sick. So speed bias, obviously, this is a pretty salty optional claiming field for Indy. But you have speed bias, who's obviously running some stakes. Is a good horse, but the favorite instant replay for Wathan Racing, Brad Cox. Look, Brad Cox sends a good string into Indy, I would say, every year. And this is kind of one of those horses where it's in that kind of B category for him, where, this horse, obviously they tried in the Louisiana Derby for that Derby trail. That didn't quite work out. But since taking him off of that and getting him to that 1.125 mile range, he's done really well. He has 2 listed stakes victories. 3 listed stakes victories since then, most recently at Louisiana Downs. And now he's going to come in here, a nice allowance race that he's eligible for. So that's obviously something to kind of take advantage of here, where you're able to kind of protect a horse like this, get them a race. And I'm sure it's to springboard them, this horse, to something maybe later on in the Indy series of stakes races that they have going on. Or as we know, Brad Cox will kind of diversify and spread out his group of horses. So it's possible that that's the reason why as well. But definitely a good allowance group in here. You have Archie the Giza, Friar Newton in here. These are some hard-knocking horses, some of which have been out at Oaklawn Park. So I hope that answers your question, JR. Charlie, you and I are going to move on to race number 9. It's time for the boys. Going 3-year-olds and upwards again for the state breds on the main track, going 6 furlongs. How'd you see this one?
Yeah, I'm hoping there's enough pace in here to set up. I don't know if it's quite going to be as much as the last race. That being said, I was looking for value in here, and for me, there was a horse I just couldn't pass on, and that's the number 7, Commander Storm. Is going to have to come from off of it, but I just think 6-1 is way too good a value. It's going to be 3rd off the layoff. This is one that seems to be progressing. The buyer top was an 80, but now, with the 72 and then the 75 seems to be trending in the right direction. I think is moving in a way where, to me, visually from what I was watching the replays, I think this one's ready to take a step forward again and set a career best effort. And that would obviously be, in those mid to low 80s. And I think that's enough here to win. And if I'm getting 6-1, I want to find out. Obviously, it does have to come from out of it. And, you see when the pace has been cold, hasn't really been able to do much. But when there is some pace, and I think there is enough in here to at least have a chance in here, this one has been very game and competitive. And, for me, I want to find out. I mean, I think there's enough forward here. Obviously, he's going to probably be in the back 3 to 4 in this field. but I think there's enough. It's third off the layoff now, seems to be progressing. And every time that this one has had a hot pace, has run a very game race. So I'm hoping there's enough in here for me to find out. And at 6-1, I like the odds.
Yeah, you mentioned at the top of the show, sometimes you like those deep closes that stuff you in a locker, but hopefully third up off the bench for Commander Storm is the money run. Certainly is improving in that 5-year-old season. To talk about the pace a little bit from the outside, Slam Dunk Justice is probably going to be one that's forward, not super speedy, but does have some early gas. So I do think if Marcelino Pedroza is aggressive out of there, obviously we've seen 2 good runs to start the 4-year-old season for this son of Harry's Holiday. So far, both of those came on the front end. So hopefully you would think that trend would continue. The number 5 also has a little bit of early gas, was behind Slam Dunk Justice, but now drawn to the inside. I wonder if this horse tries to go early. Certainly has some back races to get to where this horse was fast. This one trained by Randy Klopp. My top pick, however, is probably the speed of the speed in the number 2, Tiz Eddie. Failed last time as the favorite, but that was open allowance behind Invictus, who I couldn't believe was not the favorite that day. That is the first son out of Serengeti Empress, obviously the incredible sprinter and Oaks winner for Tom Amos. But Tiz Eddie, I thought ran okay in there. Obviously was up on the pace and ended up losing. But when you look at the race chart, the horses that were up close to that, Invictus just kind of sat that perfect trip and took things over. But when you look through this horse's state-bred races, they kind of stand out to me. Obviously, you had the 3-back effort in the slot going back to the summer of last year. But looking back to those state-bred efforts, he often wins when he's against this company. And he was up on a hot pace in this race last year. But when you look at that, obviously CJ Storm, Mondavia, they both came from 4th and 5th respectively. The horses that were up on that fast pace with him, Butch's Best and Spot on Justice, they were essentially miles behind the rest. They finished last and second last. I assume Charlie's internet has either gone out or he's doing something. But Tiz Eddie is a horse that I think second off the bench can certainly take a big step forward. We saw this last year, came back April 15th, ran okay in the low 60s, but that second start, we saw a lot more early gas from him, and he really widened and drew off. He was 4-5 that day. He's 7-2 on the morning line in here. This horse has been favored in most of his starts. In fact, all but about 3 of them on the page, he's been either the favorite or 2-1. So I do think Tiz Eddie deserves a really strong look in here, and he can come from a little bit off the pace. So while I'd like to see him up on the front end, it certainly looks like he is a little bit versatile. You get Sammy Bermudez, Tommy Medina teaming up, and they do so at a 28% clip at Indy with a $4 plus ROI over the past year. So for me, it was all Tiz Eddie on top.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have this one in second. I think makes a world of sense, like you said. You know, I mean, Invictus, I think that shows just how impressive and well-respected Tiz Eddie is for Invictus, who was a horse that was so well-meant and, you know, was running in New York and running in Keeneland and running against just much bigger names and tougher horses than these. So for this one to go off favorite, I think speaks volumes. And, yeah, I mean, from a numbers perspective, I mean, obviously, you know, with the 99, these mid-80s buyers, if Tiz Eddie's second off the layoff, kind of similar to the horses, you know, you and I liked a lot in the race before, if Tiz Eddie bounces back and, you know, just needed one, which absolutely would be justified in what was a tough field, he's absolutely the horse to be in there all running for second. The only reason I didn't have this one on top is I know it's 7-2 on the morning line, but I have a feeling when you see the names and the numbers this one's run against, you're probably getting more like 9-5, 8-5. But I think that one makes a ton of sense. Yeah,
could certainly take a lot of money in the betting windows for Tiz Eddie, but I'm hoping maybe people focus on that comeback effort and think that he's washed up or something, because I certainly think he can do a lot better. Charlie, thank you for hopping on to join me this week as we cover some Hoosier State-bred stakes action for our excellent partners at Horseshoe Indianapolis. Where can the people find your shows the rest of this week and beyond?
Yeah. I'm on Twitter at CFree316 if you want to check me out there. I'm also part of the HHH Racing podcast. I'm a recurring American handicapper guest on the Final Furlong podcast, along with you whenever they make their posts. And then as well as I will be at Belmont for Belmont Stakes weekend and the festival. I'll be there for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So I'm planning to post some content on X about that and try to maybe get some video footage, and depending on what sort of access I end up getting, try to get some other exclusive interviews and stuff like that, seeing whatever I can do while I'm there. So I'll be posting some special content for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie, for joining us. Be sure to check him out on Betting and Boozing over on the HHH Racing Podcast or C316 on X. I've been your host, Ryan Anderson, again for Charlie Freeman and all of our friends out at Horseshoe Indy. Good luck if you're betting the state bred action and the excellent racing that takes place there every week. I got about 9 minutes until they kick off racing there today, so I got to get to it because I'm certainly going to be firing away as we typically do. So take care. We'll see you guys later on here on the Gallop Out.